Nations of Race in America on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online at WSGW.com. Here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
What's going on, everybody that's out there? We are getting ready to go live with our first show of United Shades of Gray. So I want you guys to get in here, like, tag, and share this post, Conversations on Race in America.
And when I get ready to take on the fourth, when it's time to take a break, I'll start winding down by giving you the music that you'll hear it in low key.
Right.
I'll keep it in low key, and as it gets louder, you'll know that we're coming close to that time. And I'll put up a flashcard so you know I'm in the mention.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yep.
Just look at me once in a while.
Yep.
You can still talk to me the same way. You know,
Yeah, no. This is actually easier because I'm facing you, so.
Okay, yeah. Mic could be on or whatnot, you know, so whatever you want to do. But we do it like we do in TLC.
What's going on? Those of you who are tuning in, we're getting ready to go live with our premiere edition of United Shades of Gray. I wanted to include you guys that are out there. Check us out here. You can also go to WSGW.com and hear this conversation as well. But we are here in the studios of WSGW getting ready to go live. Let's call in. If you want to call in at 752-989-752-6111.
And don't mind me, I might be eating my lunch over here.
No, you're good.
Drinking water.
You're good.
You want to give me chocolate on the air, I don't do that. But like I say, healthy, young, and sexy.
Is that what you call it?
You know, no good to anybody. Don't forget your phone should be off and whatnot.
Yep.
See this? I'll be doing this to you. Okay.
Gotcha.
So that way we can communicate without interrupting anything. All right, let me go check my recording up. That's good. This is my first one. That one back up.
All right, so
this one crashed or something.
Got that sanitizer, liquid
I just
gold.
did a voice check and whatnot, so we should be good to go. I'm using that one because when we recorded last week, I just dumped it since I had this one. It was perfect over here when I produced it. You good?
Yes, I'm good.
All right, cool. I'm good. All right, I'm stoked. I don't know about you. I'm stoked. All right. And when we get close to the last part of the last segment, and it gets too close to time, we're gonna do this real quick, okay?
Okay.
It's taking too long to go. I'm gonna do this real quick. Hurry up.
All right,
okay?
cool.
Nothing out of disrespect or anything, just that, you know, I need to wrap up. Get the show on time. All right, so I think we're ready to rock. In a couple minutes, I'm gonna start at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Again, it'll be 24-minute segments. We could take a break between the 24. Okay, we need to use the bathroom or anything like that. We'll take a few minutes break.
Yeah, we good.
Because we got to have on the air. We have 3 minutes of commercials anyway, something like that.
Okay.
When we aired on Sunday. All right, so with anything that's said, we'll go over the air. And of course,
I just tagged you.
You tagged me?
No, I'm on the phone. I'm tagging you for the show. Yeah, all right. Yep.
Mike, just finish. I'll start you back up for you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so Rob, where does this? Okay, so This is going to appear. So I'm shooting on my page.
Right. I don't know. I don't think it's going to SUW. So
Okay, yeah. So I
I'm not
was
sure about that.
yeah. Okay, no, I talked to Dave about
Yeah, I
that.
don't know if I'll
So
be able to
Dave
do
is
that.
he said they're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I do have because I have my own mic and I have a USB drive that they could actually plug directly into the computer
We don't
with
have a USB
port thing.
port in there.
Okay.
Yeah, Larry made that mistake last week. He brought a Bluetooth microphone. I mean, a headset,
Headset.
and we don't have Bluetooth capability in here. So,
Okay.
you know, hey, we barely got this thing done.
Yeah.
About what 30 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
So, all right, stand by. I'm going to play your music, and then when I pot down, that's when you'll be on. Okay.
All right.
Let me start my recording here, and I will point to you when you're ready to go. Next one. Phone's on.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, everyone out there. This is United Shades of Gray Conversations on Race in America. So we're so glad to have you guys with us today on this premiere show. For some of you, you may say, "Hey, we heard of this guy before." Yes, we do have a show on KISS WTLZ entitled "Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen," but this show is just a little bit different. I'm so excited to be here with the new WSGW family. We were all a part of the Alpha Media family, but now we are part of this WSGW family, and everyone has been extremely great. I'm excited to be here. Hopefully, for those of you who are watching us out there live, you are tuning in to us via our social media platforms on WSGW via Facebook Live. And so we want you guys to get involved with this conversation. Just so you know, during the course of the show, if you have a comment or a question, you can always call in at 989-752-6111. We would love to have your question or for you to share your comment as a part of this particular program. All right, so I want to get right to where we are on this particular show. Some of you guys are saying, Kareem, don't you have enough to do in life? But this is a part of my life's purpose, bringing people together to have great conversations so that we can make meaningful impact and change will result. All right, so I want to sit here. Let's just begin. Somebody's saying out there, who is Kareem Bowen? So I want to just kind of briefly share so that we can begin to build a relationship as we continue with the show. This is something very new that WSGW is doing, so I want to give a shout out to everyone, all of the powers that be. Dave Maurer, my guy who is making this happen. Who thought that this would be a great opportunity for us to have some very tough conversations in a place that we could get some meaningful responses. All right, so who is Kareem Bowen? Well, I am born and raised here in the city of Saginaw. And those of you who are part of the WSGW community are aware of me. We've been around for quite a while. For 17 years, I was a business manager, an executive business manager for NBA athlete Jason Richardson, who's also one of the hometown boys, and then later with Draymond Green. And so now I am here today in a different capacity, but born and raised here in the city of Saginaw. Went to Carleton High School, graduated, and on to Michigan State University. So I'm a hometown guy, returning home to make some meaningful impact in here in the city of Saginaw, my hometown community. I'm also now something that many of you may not know. I'm a pastor in the community, the Potter's Touch Ministries here in the city of Saginaw, where we mold lives by the power of God's word. And I know that this is a great place for us to have conversations. So really, people ask me, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I consider myself an independent. Many of my views are very conservative in nature in terms of how I view of a lot of different things that exist. However, I can be very liberal as well in terms of some of my beliefs as it relates to spending and to some of the social programs that we have out there. So I'm a guy who walks down the middle. I believe in taking care of not only my family, my four and no more, but also having a love and a passion for those who are around us and taking care of those who are less fortunate. I'm also a businessman here in the city of Saginaw. And I want you guys to know, I want to give a shout out to my producer for this show. He's also the producer for my show, Straight Talk. And that is no one other than my right hand man, the Rob Father. Rob, why don't you just give everybody a shout out really quick? I'm so glad to have you with me here today.
Well, for the listeners there, I'm known as Rob Robinson on WSGW, but on TLZ, WTLZ, our sister station, I'm the Rob Father, or simply Rob Father, and I host the show called Classic Soul Oldies with the Rob Father every Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. And I'm happy to produce Straight Talk on WTLZ. I'm happy to produce United Shades of Grey here on WSGW. So thank you very much, Kareem.
Notice he's got an alter ego. He's Rob Robinson, and then his alter ego is the Rob Father. But he'll be rocking with me as we have these great conversations. I'm so excited. But to continue, yeah, so I'm a businessman working 17 years here in the city of Saginaw. I told you all about my career in sports and entertainment management. I'm an entrepreneur here in the city of Saginaw, consultant. Many of you may have seen me come in and do some leadership training or consulting, or you've seen Boyd and Garth Contracting. I have a contracting company that has been working throughout the community. We talked about Straight Talk. Now we're here with United Shades of Grey, and I'm super duper duper excited. Many people would call me a community organizer, but I don't know how to feel about that. I'm involved in the community. I believe that we have to be the change that we desire to see. And so for that reason, when things need to be done, I'm gonna, kind of take a look at it, see who else is interested, and try to do whatever we can to make something happen in a positive light. One of the things that I'm very passionate about, for those of you who are listening, I am very passionate about really reaching out and connecting to the young men in our community, black, brown, it doesn't matter what color, race, shade, but really reaching out to this younger generation of men and young boys and just really trying to help stir them into the right direction. That is kind of the focus, men and young boys, and really connecting with them and really turning over and just really inspecting and getting to know them and the depths, how they work. Someone told me a long time ago that when you speak to a man's interest, that you entertain his mind. And so I find myself speaking to their interests so that we can begin to have some meaningful conversations, because I believe that every community, when we have a generation of men, especially strong black men that are rising and doing great things, that the entire community has the ability and really the wherewithal to follow suit with that. And lastly, so I'm a pastor, I'm a community leader. I'm trained, and so we're having conversations in race in America. And a number of years back, trained in cultural competency and cultural bias. That means being able to communicate effectively on the conversations of race and being able to look objectively at how we see things, the schema, the things that kind of block how we view others and their perspectives. And so I am excited about this conversation on today. I really wanted to spend this time with you on today, just really getting to know you all and just to begin to just kind of give you the understanding of what it is that we're going to be addressing on this particular platform. And I can imagine many of you are out there like, Kareem, why do we have to talk about race again? And I know that when I came in and I visited a couple times with my guy, Art Lewis, on his show, in the morning show, someone asked, like, is all you do is talk about race? You wake up in the morning and talk about race? And that is not how I operate, and that's not who I am as an individual. But what I have realized, regardless of what I think, what I view, how I see things, and my perspective in life, that as I go through life as a black man, I'm continually reminded by the events of the day, by the occurrences of life, that I am a black man. So, and that's not a bad thing in most cases, but because I think that race is something beautiful. So I'm not ashamed to be a black man. As James Brown said a long time ago, very controversial, I'm black and I'm proud, say it loud, but so this is just an opportunity for us to have conversations of great meaning. I think that a lot of people, oftentimes, and I'll say this and I mean this to the core of who I am, I think oftentimes we will label individuals racist. And the reality of it is I don't believe that they may be racist, but I think that they just don't understand, and they may be insensitive to some of the things that they're saying, and they may say things that are racially charged and not necessarily mean to be abusive or offensive in the manner in which they may articulate or do some of the things that they do. And I think that this is a great location this show is a great place for us to have those conversations. One thing that I want to say to you all that are out there, this is not about bashing white people. We're not trying to take, people back 100 years and pay them back for what happened in slavery. That's not who I am. God has blessed me and afforded me some great opportunities to travel this world. And in traveling this world, I realized that there are other nations around the world that don't have the same issues with race as we do here in the United States of America. And so, in doing so, because of the diverse opportunities I've had, the opportunities and diversities that I've experienced as a young man, and I'm relatively a young man, I noticed that when I've had honest conversations with people about race, and we've talked about the issues, and I've been very open and been able to be, and they've been able to articulate how I feel about a particular situation. I realize that most people realize, hey, I don't ever want to offend you, and so the greater good of humanity then comes through as we begin to realize it. So I think it's important for us to have these conversations so that we can understand boundaries and barriers and social norms and societal norms and how we can operate within those things. There's certain things that are intrinsic upon us all just as being human beings. And then there are certain things that are consistent within our racial makeup and our racial barriers. And so I'm appreciative of this opportunity to share this with you all today. Someone else out there may say, hey, okay, so why United Shades of Gray? One of the things that you guys are going to realize about me as we begin to forge out this relationship and continue this conversation is that I love to engage in conversation. I am a communicator to the max. I believe that there is no such thing as over communication. But the more we communicate and the more we explain ourselves and how we feel and we share our perspectives, that we begin to find ourselves in places that we're able to forge some very strong bonds and relationships. And so I look forward to the opportunity to have that kind of conversation with those of you who are out there. And so I want to once again to say to those of you who are there, if you would like at any point as we are in the show that we are going to be engaging, and some of my guests will come in and we'll talk about some issues that would be probably considered hot topics or hot button items, that you can always feel free to come in. I encourage audience participation. And you can do so by calling into the studio at 989-752-6111. And so I look forward to hearing your conversations and hearing what you all have to say as we continue this things. But why United Shades of Gray? We always hear this, the United States of America is, I've heard that it was a melting pot, meaning that we are all, from different backgrounds, races, and cultures and nationalities. And then we have come together and we have merged and melted into this one big pot of this homogenous American brand that we are. I've heard other people say that we were a tossed salad, that each of us comes in, and I love this particular analogy that we're tossed salad and that we share so many things in common, but we hold on to that uniqueness that we have as a people. And so you can see us as a nation. The nation is a salad, but then there is the cucumbers, the tomatoes, and the carrots, and so you can see us in our very different cultures. And so I like that one as well. But I said United Shades of Gray because the reality of the fact is that many of the conversations that we have that polarize us, that send us to North and South Pole, are the conversations that we have regarding race, the black and white issues. And if we have black and white issues and we can come together and we can begin to have these conversations, then we would really be able to see ourselves not necessarily as black and white, but shades of gray. Black and white, black plus white, you mix them together, you get gray. So shades of gray is the reason why I gave it that title, because I want us to come together, unite, and to have these hard conversations, to talk about these issues, because I believe truly that we can change anything that we're willing to have a conversation about. Change starts with a conversation. So why the topic of race? And for those of you who are tuning in, I see a number of you guys that are beginning to come in on social media. I want you to lock this in, that you get involved with this and get used to us having this conversation 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, so that you can continually be a part of this conversation that I think that will navigate a historic coming together of our people. I believe that just like anything else is going to be a hard start, but the ending of a thing is much better than the beginning thereof. Conversations on race. Why? Because it's the first thing that we notice whenever we begin to talk. When you go down the street, and I've seen this a number of times, and you see a report on the news, and they'll say, "Well, who's the individual that did it?" It was like, "Well, it was a black man about 6'2". It was a white man," because it's the thing that we can recognize, that we can begin to distinguish without any issue. Without It's the first thing that we see. It's optical. We are very visual people, and so when we use race, race does not have to be a bad thing. And so I want to give you guys an opportunity. Hello, Donna. I see you out there. There's some of you else that are out there. Those of you who are going to tune in on social media, please just hit the link above the post that we have there, and it will allow StreamYard to use your comments if you're coming in through Facebook. That way I can see who's out there with me as well as we begin to have this conversation. So when we talk, the reason that we're having these conversations on race, that we're going to continually try to find ways that we can get away from the thing that we notice most. So even though race is the first thing that we notice about many people don't say, they may notice she's a woman, but we often say she's a Hispanic woman or she's a black woman, because it's a way that we are able to define exactly clearly who it is that we're speaking to. So I want to make sure that we have that conversation. And then the other reason why talk about race is because we avoid it. It is the first thing that we see, but it is the last thing that we are comfortable talking about. It makes us uncomfortable. And I think that we have to begin to get to a place that we're able to have the tough conversations. We can sit here and we can kumbaya, but until we're really able to dig beneath the surface and have the tough conversations, we won't really be able to see the moving of the needle that we really desire to in the song of life that we all live and play a part. Once again, while we're here, those of you who are listening, if you like to call in and just kind of give a shout out or make a point or give me your opinion on some things, you can always call in at 989-752-6111. This is a live recording here at the WSGW studio, which will air Sunday evenings. Those of you who are listening to me, it's Sunday evening between the hours of 7 and 8 p.m. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on here. So you're like, I don't know when you're coming on, but that's what we're doing, okay? So we want you to be a part of this conversation. If you want to be a part of the live recording and you want your comments heard or your point of view heard, you need to call in on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Between the time of 1 and 2 p.m. on Wednesdays, all right? And then you can hear the show in its entirety on Sundays at 7 p.m. from 7 to 8 p.m. All right, so we're glad to have that little piece. So just once again, so we're going to continue with this. Race is the thing that often divides us. I use the term polarizing before, and when we say polarizing, there's a North Pole and there's a South Pole, and many times race is the thing that will cause us to be polarized. We move to the opposite ends of the spectrum, and there is so much world in between the North and the South Pole. And so as we begin to look at this, as we have these conversations, it will challenge us to move from those ends and meet somewhere in the equator of life, that we can come somewhere right in the middle, that we can begin to have those conversations and realize that there is so much of life and the world that we are missing because we have retreated to our poles on polar opposites of things that are going on in life. All right. So someone says, why now? Why do we have to have this conversation now? We've had the civil rights movement of the 50s and the movements of the 60s and all the things that are going on. And I'll tell you, because I think that there's no better time than the present for this conversation. We live in a world that there's a browning of America, if you will, that we see so much diversity that is increasing. And I look at younger generations as opposed to those who were my generation or generations before. And I look at how those generations. I grew up in a very, it wasn't homogenous. It was pretty a white community. I grew up in a pretty much white community. You know, I was the only black guy on uh, the student council board, or you know, all of those different boards, Rob. And so it was really interesting growing up in my community. Growing up as a black man in white America was a very interesting situation. But our community was such that my family was very black. My grandfather was the pastor of a black church, so we had the socialization of the black community. But growing up, when I went away to school, they had a nickname for me. It was Carlton from Carlton, and basically what that was is I was a black man. You know, the Argyle socks and the matching socks with the sweater. That's who I was.
When you're trying to fit in.
Well, you know, and that's something that we have to talk about. And so as we talk about it, we have these conversations. I know somebody is out there cracking up, laughing like this dude is a trip. But when we look at this and we have these conversations, you use the term socialization, and I think that it's important for us to realize that we don't have to lose our identity to be to get along in America. We should be. We should be able to celebrate our differences, to do those things that are different, to embrace our culture and our history. You know, it's really interesting as a black man, and I say this because I think it's very important for America to hear this perspective. I'm not angry at anyone when I say that I'm black and I'm proud. I'm not angry at anyone when I say that I am pro-black. And someone says, "Well, how would you feel if I said that I was pro-white?" Rob, you know, someone's asked, well, how would you feel if I said I was pro-white? I would say, well, I think that you're living like the majority of America, because that is America has been founded, and policies and laws and everything that exists, neighborhoods design, basically based upon the ideas of the predominant culture, which is white America in this country. So I think that it's interesting that we say that and we allow other nationalities, Asian Americans come in, Chinese Americans, and they come in, and we have Chinatowns in almost every major city in our country. And we don't have an issue with that. We celebrate that diversity. You know, here, as well as our Hispanic Americans, Mexicans, those who have the descents from Mexico. And I want to make sure that we're clear, because, you know, Latinos and Mexicanos are completely two different things. But Mexican Americans, you go to any community in our town, in any major city, and there is a Mexican town where you can go there and you can enjoy and live apart and embrace that culture of Mexico. And I think that it's a cool thing to be able to do that. But there is no African American town. There is no, you know, Black Americaville here in the United States. And so I think that, you know, when we say that we're black and we're proud, we're saying that we are willing to embrace the part of our culture that like other nationalities have. And we just want the opportunity to live free, to enjoy life, to express our culture and the freedom of who we are, and to exceed and to excel in life like everyone else does.
Excuse me, Kareem, we have a special guest on the phone here. You might want to speak to this person.
Okay.
Special guest, are you there?
I'm doing well. How are you doing? For those of you who are out there, this is probably my greatest fan on the planet. This is my mother, Geraldine Walker. Her last name, for those of you who are listening that may know her, Geraldine Bowen. And so she's on the radio. Hey, how you doing, Miss Walker? I'm doing well. What brings you to call in on today, other than you wanting to support your baby? One of the things, and I guess this would be indicative, while I have you online, Mom, just really quick, because you grew up in a very different America than I did. But one of the things, and I say this is a cultural thing, a cultural phenomenon. I guess this may go across the board. I don't know. I can only speak from the perspective that I am. But what I have noticed in black communities, we have mothers they go hard for their babies. And they will protect their baby cubs like none other. And growing up in a single parent household, my mother, she later remarried to my stepfather, but growing up in a single parent household, I've seen so many strong women who are there in our community. Mom, when you look at growing up how did race shape your life, and how did race play a part, even in how you raised two Black boys in this community? Now, Mom, we're going to take a break in just a few minutes, but I want you to think about this so that we can discuss this on the other side of the question. On the other side of this break, you just said something. You knew that you had to raise us to be strong Black men, and there are a lot of Black men across the country who have been raised with that same installation from their parents, that same imputation from their parents, that you have to be a strong Black man. When we come back from this break, I want you to really share what you mean as you raise me, because I've heard that so many times. Be a strong Black man. I have to be twice as good. I want you to share with us when we come back from this break exactly what you mean and why that was so important. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of USG, United Shades of Gray. So those of you out there on social media, we are here on break really quick. So stay tuned. We'll be back. If you want to get involved in this conversation for today, this is our premiere show. We're just setting the balance for where we're going. I want to talk about some housekeeping rules as well as we get going. This is our first show. I am so excited about what is being planned as I look at the plenary for what we're getting ready to do. The agenda is absolutely exciting. The people that we're going to bring in and discuss this conversation on Race America. The idea is not to sever that relationship, but to see if there is a way for us to have conversations about reparations, conversations about police brutality, conversations about Black Lives Matter, about politics and how these things tend to divide us. But can we have conversations? And I believe that we can, that will bring us together and not further drive us apart.
You ready?
Yep.
You're listening to United Shades of Gray on WSGW.
All right, we're back with United Shades of Gray. I am your host, Kareem Bowen, and I have this amazingly beautiful, sexual, voluptuous, vivacious woman that is on the line with me on today. She happens to be my mother. She was actually the first caller. We're going to have to put this in the annals of the history book that the first caller on United Shades of Gray was my mom. And so I'm glad that you called in, Mom. And I see Donna. Hopefully this will help build a good relationship for folks in the community. Donna, you're absolutely right. She's calling out there on social media. We want you guys, this to be an interactive process that you guys can get involved in here on today. All right, so we're back to this conversation. I asked you a question on the other side of this break, Mom. You said what we've heard so many times that I know that I've heard as a Black man growing up, especially where we grew up. I didn't grow up in the hood, if you would. I did and I didn't. We lived in the hood in a couple of situations, but I graduated from Carlton High School. I spent a great deal of time in Carlton with my grandparents. But you said something. You said that you told us that I had to be a strong Black man, and then you said I had to be twice as good. This is what you meant. What did you mean when you said that, and why did you think it was necessary to instill that into your Black sons? Hey, don't be telling all of my business. You know, there's some people out there be like, "Homecoming king, who did you think you were?" But you're absolutely right. I'll let you continue because it was interesting. I grew up in Carlton. I think I was the second African American homecoming king after a guy by the name of Tony Carson. and Tony was the homecoming king probably 2 or 3 years before I was. So growing up in my generation, and I'm relatively young, we saw a number of firsts that took place, and so it was a really we were breaking ground in new territories. Even this, I'm in my 40s. This is relatively recent that these types of things are happening. And so you were saying, Mom, you knew that we had to go out there and make great things happen. You told me I had to be twice as good. I understood what that meant, but what did that mean to you as a parent raising a black man? He's better at keeping his cool about things like that than I am. For those of you, hold on one second, Mom. I just want to say this. For those of you who are listening, so that you understand the dynamics under which I operate. Growing up, I grew up in a predominantly white community for the most part. We did when I was a kid, I went to CC Culture, so we grew up in as a kid we were on the east side of Saginaw. It's actually the south side of Saginaw. We then eventually moved, in the city. And then I ended up going while we were living in the city to Carlton because that's where my grandparents lived. And so my experience growing up is a little bit different than my what I would call pampered brother, who grew up while my parents were in a better situation the entire time. But Mom, you were saying, that you knew that we would do well, and you were talking about the issue with my brother. I tend to stand up for those situations. The term that my mother uses for me, and I'm gonna throw it out there, and she's gonna laugh about this. I use the term community organizer. She uses the term "you're a rebel rouser." But and what do you mean when you say that I'm a rebel rouser, Mom? What are you saying? Because there are listeners that will hear this conversation, and they want to hear. They're gonna like, who is this guy that's on WSGW, which is a very conservative radio station for the most part. I'm on the same station. I think Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh. So if you talk about conservatism, there's not so much more that you can talk about. But when you say that I'm a rebel rouser, what does that mean to you? Because there's a lot of people who take that word and be like, oh my goodness, he's a part of Antifa. That's not the case at all. But when you say a rebel rouser, what are you talking about? And what does that mean? I say what I feel. What does that mean? And that includes, and I think that what she means is that includes issues of race, of bias, of discrimination, of inconsistent treatment. And so, but I think that it's important. I'm glad that you said what you said earlier, because my truest definition and desire in life is to build bridges. But I realize that before a bridge can ever be built, that you've got to first of all turn over the soil. You've got to tear some things down to build some things up. And I am one who will always have, I'm always going to speak truth to power. I believe in equal treatment. I believe in equal access. And so many times where many people think that, just, go along with the status quo. I believe that there is no status quo that does not include equity and inclusion. And so I am very vocal as it relates to those things. And sometimes he thinks, why don't you just ever let some things go? And I think that as a people, and I have you on the line, and we talk about this all of the time at home. She's like, son, you're causing too many problems for yourselves. You're getting on the radio and you're talking about, officers and systemic racism. And, you have it good in life. You should take it easy. But
If it's any consolation, Geraldine, my mom was the same way. When I was a young kid and teenager, got into politics. She did not know why I was hanging around someone as prominent as C. Dolores Tucker, the former Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, who passed many years ago. I went under her wing, and I got into voter registration, and I was president of my class, doing things in Harrisburg and whatnot. And she said, Gerald, why are you causing so much? Why are you into this whole thing? You're usually a quiet person, but I found my niche, and I promised her, Mom, one day I'm gonna come back and be mayor of Philadelphia. So you never know.
well, I don't want to be the mayor, but I will stand up. Now, Mom, I want to ask you this question because I don't think that our listeners would be able to get any clearer picture of who I am as a person. So as we have these conversations on race, you did say that I am a bridge builder, and I didn't pay you to say. I didn't even expect you to call in today, but I'm glad that you did. So when you say that I'm a bridge builder, but what was the reason that you felt a need to tell me that I had to be a strong black man and that I had to be twice as good? What was the reason behind that?
Things kind of changed. And so I wanted to make sure you guys were strong enough to carry on when you were on your own,
So they
because
can hear.
I know this world is really
Now
different
they can hear.
as a different kind of world with you guys growing up. And I figured if I talk to you and say, well, you know what, you got to do it this,
You got to play it in the studio so they can hear
you
it.
know, now you're
You said now?
If you don't play it in the studio, they can't hear it on social media.
You can't hear her.
said, and I admire you, but it's still I have fear because of what's going on today, today's world, and
Wait a minute. 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 You just said you admire those. You know that you look at all the young men who have been slain, and I speak out. Why is there a fear that you have because I am open and I do speak out? Those of you who are out there listening to social media, I am. I'm trying to make sure because you guys are not hearing some of the things that we're having in this conversation unless we get the audio in the studio. And so when my producer returns, we will get back to that. But thank you, Mom. I certainly thank you for tuning in and for answering that question. And I know, is there anything when you look at? I want to ask you this one thing because there was a situation that occurred and I know those of you who are out there on social media land, I think that you can hear me when it plays in the studio, but you're having trouble hearing me through my
Yeah,
headphones, of
let
course.
me explain that. We're working on that problem here. We have that problem in our studio, and that's a problem we're working on for all of our stations. So apologies to our listeners on social media who can't hear the conversation. You will be able to hear it when we air the show on Sunday. But for right now, while we're live, we can't. We don't have that. We have not had that
Okay.
problem
All right.
resolved just yet.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Rob, because I think that they said they could hear when we were playing it in the studio, but
Well,
we'll work it out.
yeah, when I
Yeah.
turn off the mic, you can hear what's going on in the studio.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
That makes sense. All right. So, okay. So,
a genuine, loving kind of guy. So when the questions come up and maybe they seem kind of harsh, when you answer them.
I,
I just want them to keep in mind I raised a good son, and that I know whatever he says, he's saying from a pure and clean heart. So I don't want you to get him wrong because this is a
o-
good guy and he's well loved within the city. And don't be too hard on him, okay?
okay, Mom. Okay, thank you. I was going to ask you another question, but I think I'm going to end your conversation right now. She says that and for those who are listening, what she's saying is that I don't have an issue, and I'll say it again once. I don't have a problem with speaking truth to power, and it's not about what I've been able to achieve or what door I can operate through until we all have the ability to walk through those same doors. I won't be at peace, and it causes me frustration when I see me be treated a particular way because of my relationships or where I have and then to see others. And I'm not just talking about black men, but predominantly I'm talking about black men and women. But I'm talking about all people. I'm a person who fights for the underdog, and I believe that we should all be given that same opportunity. Well, Mom, I want to thank you for calling in today. I certainly appreciate your contribution and your providing some perspective to the host of this particular show, United Shades of Gray. Hope you have an amazing day, and I'm looking forward to that macaroni and cheese and dressing and I was gonna say pumpkin pie. That the devil is a lie. I'm talking about sweet potato pie. Yeah. So those of you out there, and I speak to this to all my lighter skinned brothers out there. Those of you believe that pumpkin pie is the best pie in the old world. I want to give you an opportunity and challenge you to be a little diverse on this year and pull out some of that sweet potato pie and see if it doesn't tingle your stomach as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and look forward to having future conversations with you, Mom. I love you. You take care. Okay. All right. So I want to continue really quick because I want to make sure because there'll be other of you that will call in, and so I want to just really quick talk about the rules of engagement. And don't think that I've forgotten because I want to get back to that conversation of why have this conversations about race in America now. I have four quick things that I want to make sure that we understand that we all operate from. Four rules of engagement. If you're going to be calling and be a part of the social media group or if you're going to call on the phone. And number one is just to keep it clean. This is a radio station, and we want to make sure that we adhere to the rules of the FCC and that we keep it clean. So that's no swearing. Keep your language. My family, my grandmother used to always say, well, people who swear have a limited vocabulary. So let's expand our vernacular, our vocabulary on today and keep it clean. All right. Let's find other ways to say what we sometimes want to just use four-letter words and other things to express. Number two, I want to make sure that we keep it respectful. Everyone that is here has an opinion. And I just want you to understand that I respect your opinion. I may not agree with your opinion, and vice versa. You may not agree with mine, but let's be respectful to one another. Thirdly, I want us to be honest. We got to keep it honest. Anything that I say to you, I'm not concerned about offending anyone, even though that is not my desire. But I think oftentimes we are offended by the truth. And we have to then ask ourselves, what was it about the truth that caused me offense? So I want us to keep it clean, keep it respectful, keep it honest. And lastly, we must be willing to listen. After all, a conversation is not just one person talking and everyone else is listening, but it's one person talking, the others, and then they listen, then the other person speaks, and we go that way. All right. So I want to make sure that we are laying the ground foundation to have some really intriguing, exciting, and at times it'll be a little heated conversations as we have these very difficult conversations on race. All right. We're going to do it. I believe that we can do it. And I'm excited about taking this journey with you. All right. So, why are we having these conversations on race now? When we look at this and we begin to examine, 2020 has been an amazing year. It has been a year that we have experienced things in the like and seen things that we have never seen before, and in the manner that we've seen these things. And so, beginning the end of January, we saw the introduction to the world stage of COVID-19, or I should say here in America, because before they were hitting it in 2019. But in 2020, in January, the end of January, going into February, we began to hear about something called the coronavirus, SARS-2. And when COVID hit the United States of America, it hit in such a fashion. Initially, there were communities of color that said, hey, maybe we're immune to this. And we saw people say, we can't get it, we can't get it. But what we realized very quickly is that COVID 19 would become one of the most viable components that we've had in opponents that we've had in a long time. And when it hit the African American communities and when it hit our country, it hit us in a way that we've never seen the likes of before. Even as we are having this conversation, we are standing in a place that we are at the height of this pandemic, and communities of color have been impacted in ways that we've not seen in other. We are more likely to be hospitalized. We are more than twice, almost 3 times more affected to this, and it's a lot of this has to do with some of the pre-existing conditions that this particular virus feeds on. But what COVID did in 2020 is that it shined a light on a lot of the disparities that exist in our country. That if you lived in the hood or you lived in the black community or you were black, then you recognize these things and you knew these things as being true. But it put this thing in front of our eyes in living color in a way that we have never seen it before. It gave us a great example on the disparities of our health care systems and access to health care. And so these are the kind of things that we need to address. Why is there such a great disparity between how, blacks are able to get health care, Hispanics get health care, white Americans are able to get health care, when we live in one of the greatest nations of all? There should be great quality health care for all Americans. And I know that that's not something people think, oh, well, you work hard, but there's something called an inheritance. And some of us have an inheritance that has allowed and positioned us in life. Well, no, my grandparents came across here and they were immigrants and they came here and they worked with nothing and they were poor and they were given benefits that even Black Americans and Americans, period, don't get with tax incentives and breaks and things of that nature. So this is a whole conversation. But COVID-19 brought to the forefront some of the disparities that we see in our communities, but it allowed the world to see it in a great way because this was one of the greatest healthcare crises of our time. Going from COVID, why? George Floyd. Say my name, George Floyd. And on this particular radio station, and I need to say this to you guys, when I was having conversation with Dave Maurer and Mr. Thomas about doing this particular program, they were like, well, Kareem, you're doing Straight Talk. And you're right. And on Straight Talk, those of you who have ever listened or had an opportunity, we talk about issues that confront blacks in America. I make sure that it is informative, that it is inspirational, that it is empowering. So we don't just talk about issues. We talk sometimes about what is it that we need to do to align ourselves to be more productive and make great things happen in our communities. So we talk about all of these different things, but as it became a conversation of race and with the George Floyd situation and the issues of civil unrest and social justice, the need for social justice, policing reform, all of these conversations coming up, I've seen how polarized our country has been. I have friends that I've had for years. I mean, years growing up since third grade that I would consider great friends that I've seen their commentary, whether it be on a social media platform or some other platform, and it has just kind of blown my mind. And so I've lost a lot of friends, Rob, and I know that you're here. I've lost a lot of friends in 2020, and it was not due to my hypersensitivity, but it was due to the fact that I don't understand how I could have a friend who does not understand, who will hear my pain, say that they understand my pain, but yet not stand with me in dealing with or soothing my pain.
They're not on the same frequency as you are, or as we both are in some cases.
Absolutely. So that was a problem. And when I began to see the issue with George Floyd, it brought to the forefront something that as a black man, I don't think America really understands. Those of you who are listening to this conversation, you heard my mom that was on here, who I love dearly. She grew up and there was a fear that she had because she was raising 2 young black men. And the stories that we were told as young men, and I don't know how it is in white America and how in those white households, but I was told as a young black man always that I had to keep my guard up, that I had to be aware. Um, I had to make sure that I was twice as good. And I don't think that those are conversations that most white people are having with their young boys and girls in their households. But this was something, this was real that I had to deal with. And when I began to see the situation with George Floyd, and there had been a lot of conversation, even with the different things that have happened in our world in terms of legislation. We can talk about the crime bill in '94. We talk about the issues that they were going catch and release and all of these different things. We talk about the issues of white privilege, and we could talk about all of those different things. And what we don't realize, most people don't realize, is as a black man, yes, I've been pulled over by the police officers. I have chronically been pulled over by police officers, and depending on what vehicle I was driving, I was pulled over more. What kind of treatment was I being given as a black man? And these are things my family literally taught me, that when you're pulled over by the police officers, make sure that your hands, they used to say out the window, but make sure they're on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden moves. And these are things that living in America as a black man that we have to deal with. And I don't think that other nationalities are really ready for to understand. So I want to have those conversations. What can we do so that you can understand, why is there a need? Why should I, as a black man, have to be given a certain set of rules on how to engage with police officers that are not consistent across the board? Stay tuned for more of USG, United Shades of Gray.
Close out the show. Close out the show.
All right, we thank you for this time. We want to hope that hopefully that you'll come in on next week with more of United Shades of Gray. Thank you for this time. It was great to have you.
Uh.